Good afternoon and welcome, guys. Listen, absolutely welcome on this beautiful Monday morning, the 10th, or Monday morning. I say it's Monday morning, it's Monday afternoon, the 10th of October, guys. This is Dollars for Lunch, and we're going to have an amazing session together as we look at the New York Stock Exchange open. However, we have a massive week in the markets, and we have a ton of information that we're going to go through. It is going to be mind-blowing. Now, again, for those of you who joined us for our NFP session, it was bonkers, and we had an absolutely amazing session together. For those of you that traded with us and for those of you who were participating, we had a massive time. We went back and we had a look at the data, and the data is mind-blowing, right? So cumulatively, right, with all traders together, we managed to have a profitable day. Over 3 million Rand in profit was made on Friday, NFP alone, just in our live session together. So I promised myself that if I go over the 200,000 Rand mark, I was going to go ahead and we would book a ticket, jump over into Cape Town, just have an amazing time. And that's exactly what I did. It was an absolutely amazing weekend, and just the powerful testimony of what the foreign exchange market can do for you and your life should you take it seriously and really get into it. And I had a lot of people messaging and asking, what does it take to make that kind of money? What does it take to do those kind of volumes? And the reality is it's not $100 account, right? You just need to understand $100 account does not end up getting you to a third of $1 million in a trading session. But the bigger you go, the more potential you obviously have to make it big. And it comes down to risk management. And again, as always, you obviously can't put money in the markets that you are not prepared and mentally, psychologically prepared in order to lose. But risk management put in place would avoid you getting to that particular place. Just a quick shout out from everybody in the chats. And as always, you guys in the chats are absolutely amazing. I can see Lotvuma, Aslam, my dearest brother. I can see John Mickett. I can see Gawain. I can see Frank. I can see Mr. Grills, Tepo, Rafika, Awe, Ruan Clausen, Silas, Mobile, Tyler Leno, guys, Peter van Wyk, Mosela, Peter Fari, Wafik, Ephraim, Kanyana, Darlene, Onlena Joseph, Keith. Guys, you are absolutely amazing. I can see John Claude is in the house. Guys, you are absolutely amazing. Now remember, guys, if you are part of the Globex 360 team, please, as always, raise your hand, because this is about a community. This is about building family. So if you're part of the Globex 360 team and you're part of all the support departments, whether it's sales, support, KYC, you name it, guys, let's go ahead and drop that water emoji just so the team knows exactly who you are. We go ahead and we'll drop that little dab dude. I believe there's a ton of people in the house that is obviously joining us. Now, again, as always, please remember that these live broadcasts, in terms of the dollars for lunch, this is only for accounts that have $100 or more. We are building systems to automate these emails, but I did see a few minutes prior to going live that were still a couple of you who did not have your email. So I decided to share the link and make it public. But remember, from tomorrow, Dollars for Lunch are only for what we call premium clients. And that means that you have a live account, it is verified, and you have more than $100. And we are busy with some really exciting packages for those of you who have more than $100 in your account to really make that value proposition overwhelming. As you guys already know, just by being with Globex 360, the value proposition is unlike any other broker in the world right now, just by default. So we're about to take that even further, as I promised you guys. If you guys noticed the brand new intro, it looks super sexy. I know I probably can't say the word sexy, but I've said it twice, so I have to say it a third time. It looks super sexy. Let me know what you guys think about the intro video. Silas is asking, can I share tips about how to create a better trading plan? Silas, that is exactly what the Globex 360 Academy is for. We're going to be having 3 portions to the Academy. We're going to be having a beginners, we're going to have an intermediate, we're going to have a pro. And in pro is where I teach all of my strategies. So whether it's scalping indices, whether it's swing trading, whether it's FX trading, whether it's looking at commodities, or whether it's looking at individual stocks, those are all part of trading strategies, right? Looking at what works for you, picking what works for you, and then capitalizing on that based on your time, based on your schedule, based on your budget and what your pocket allows for. So you definitely want to be a part of that. But listen, we're not here to talk about that. We are here to trade. We're here to jump in the market. So I think first and foremost, before we do anything, I think we want to go ahead and we're going to jump straight into the news and have a look at what is busy happening in the world and what we need to paying attention to. Now, this week is going to be massive. It's going to be huge, right? And in essence, the things we're going to be focusing the most on are definitely going to be, what is happening in the world from the next Federal Reserve FOMC interest rate decision. Now, we have some CPI data that is going to end up coming out this week, and that's going to be coming out on Thursday from a fundamental data perspective. But that is going to set the tone and set the stage for how aggressive the Federal Reserve in the US is going to hike the next interest rate. Now, the expectation, right, at the current point in time is anywhere between 50 and 75 basis points, right? 50 basis points means 0.5% on the base interest rate. 75 basis points, again, likewise, is 0.75. But again, as we've seen the strong US data come out, as we saw NFP on Friday, we killed NFP for two reasons. First reason being that the employment market, the labor market in the US is doing extremely well. And the data that we got out for NFP was really, really good. And that sent the dollar flying and it sent indices to the floor. Okay. Now that sounds like a great thing, but it's not, because the Federal Reserve's job to slow down inflation is essentially to slow down the economy, to slow down the growth of that dollar. Now, again, that NFP data we just got in combination with what we could receive from a CPI figure data coming up this Thursday could set the tone for essentially what is going to be happening when the Federal Reserve meets up next. And that is obviously going to be massive and something we obviously need to pay quite a bit of attention to, because it, again, like I said, it's going to set the tone for where it is we're going. Now, as we jump into some of the fundamental data for today, again, as always, being Monday, you guys know that from a fundamental data perspective, things are slow. We generally see fairly relaxed Mondays, as is the case today, further exacerbated by the fact that we just had NFP. NFP, guys, if you were with us, right, if you were with us on NFP, I want you guys to share the love, put your hand up. Like I said, a total of over 3 million Rand in profit was made on Friday in about 10 minutes, just with clients that were trading with us together on that Friday. So if you were part and parcel of that, I want you to go ahead and let's do something a little bit different this afternoon. Let's do something a little bit differently today. And this is what I want to ask you guys to do. I want you to go to your MetaTrader, whether it's on your cell phone, on your laptop. I want you to go and just look at your Friday's trading history. And if you traded NFP with us and you sold US30 with us, what I want you to do is go ahead and grab a screenshot of that. And we want to just do something different today. We want to share the love. I want you to go ahead and direct message me with that screenshot, right? Just inbox me. Let me know how the experience was. I just want to know a little bit from you. What was it like if it was your first NFP trading with us? What was it like? Brief description. If it was difficult, was it too quick? How did you find the information? Did you understand what was happening first and foremost? And if you profited with us, with the hundreds of clients that done and did that, right? Please go ahead and share that screenshot, but just a short 1-sentence story, 2 sentences max, a paragraph of what the experience was like for you. Because again, these types of things help us to build better and curated opportunities and experiences for every single one of you as traders, right? This is the type of thing, guys, again, first and foremost, my heart sits in trading. The reason for me being a part and parcel of Globex 360 as a trader, over and above the fact that the executive team, the sale, every single person involved in this company is absolutely passionate and dedicated towards trading in this industry, just becoming better. But more than that, as a trader, to create change. But again, I need to see what it is you guys are doing. I need to see what it is that you guys want. And we have that power to shift and change to give you exactly what you want. As I've explained before, Globex 360 live TV is for every single one of you. It's not about me. It's not about the team. There's a lot happens in the background to make this happen, but it's for every single one of you. So a quick paragraph, a quick little sentence, maybe a screenshot from your end and how you felt and how you experienced NFP with us would go a very, very long way. And again, share the love, guys. There is no better broker to be with in the country, in the world, other than Globex 360. So if you've just shared a screenshot already last week to me or for me and sent it, I just incentivize you just to go ahead and send me something today and just your experience. If you felt the experience was bad and was confusing, you didn't know what you were doing, it was scary, tell me that, right? We're not looking for sugar-coated, we're looking for the raw truth, we're looking for how you found it, but we absolutely killed it. And I had an amazing experience over the weekend with the person that I one day hope to call my wife. So again, if you had an amazing experience on Friday, then absolutely go ahead and share that with us. Now, again, we're all here to look at the markets. We're all here to jump into some trading, and we are only a few minutes away from the New York Stock Exchange open. So today we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to look at the indices market. We're going to look at where markets are currently at, and as well as, you know, what we could potentially expect this afternoon. We're going to look at US 30 as well as indices and look at those trades. And then we're going to jump into looking at analyses on other items. We're going to look at Forex, we'll look at commodities, we'll look at crypto, but we'll do the post analysis after the New York Stock Exchange open. So without further ado, what we're going to do is we're going to jump straight into it, and we're going to move into the live trading portion of what we want to get done this afternoon. So let's go straight in and let's have a look at where we are currently at. Okay. So what we're currently looking at right now and at the moment, we are currently looking at US 30. And guys, this is where we absolutely dominated looking at Friday in terms of that NFP move, right? An absolutely massive move, right? There is our NFP move there. We caught the breakdown, moved very, very fast, right? We caught that initial move. Let's just get to it, right? We caught the initial spike, right? A little bit late. It poked out. I would have liked to have got a pending order in a little bit earlier and a little bit sooner. That was our little market structure. If you haven't watched that video, go ahead and have a look. I've shared that video in the link this morning of how that went down. And again, you want to be part of any of these future live events, make sure your account is live and funded, a minimum of $100. So got that spike down. US 30 has pretty much run into the floor. And as we start to see markets open up today, markets opened up this morning, we start to see a little bit of initial push down, but then we're starting to see a recovery. And what I'm most interested in this afternoon is this current little push up that we're currently seeing at the start of the US market open, right? So US market open, right, is right about there. That's the US market open. And we're really starting to see that push and that pop on the momentum on US 30 towards that top side on that US market open, right? We got that almost immediately. What I'm interested in this afternoon is, how does the market see that? And if you ask me, right, the Federal Reserve, I think the markets believe that the Federal Reserve is going to come out swinging. But what we're seeing over here is we're seeing that break on the RSI towards the top side, right? So even though we're getting these little pushes, right, we're getting these little moves to the top side, US market open, New York Stock Exchange has just opened up in the last minute. So what we're going to do here is we are simply just going to open up all three indices together really quickly, and we're just going to have a look at what everything is doing in relation to each other, and then we are going to jump into having a look at some of those trades together. Okay, let's quickly go ahead and organize our charts there. So with all three together, so we currently have US 30 on the far left, we have NASDAQ dead center, and then we have German 30 far right. So again, we got the initial uptick, right? And again, I'm looking for the weakness. If we're going to see a continuation towards the downside, I do believe markets are fairly scared of what has transpired. And again, should we go get that CPI interest rate movements, right, or bad data, that could be pretty bad for indices as a whole. And again, the Federal Reserve is going to come down with a hammer and a chainsaw in their next meeting, which I believe is happening in 3 weeks from now. So we're obviously going to have a look at that CPI data, but at the moment, I'm just masking off my ideal areas here. Again, US 30 on the left-hand side, NASDAQ dead center, German 30 far right. So all I'm doing when we look at these sessions is I'm building out some perimeters of where I would like to buy and where I'd like to sell. So again, I don't like always buying something that is already rallying, already pushing to the top side, but we could potentially see pushes across the board. US 30 is showing signs it wants to go through its previous high. I would like to see that happen across the board. I would like to see US 100, NASDAQ push top side. I'd like to see German 30 push top side. And then I would consider running a chase on US 30 top side, right? Again, when we don't see those moves, and I'm looking for those conditions. And again, it always varies. Like people often ask me, what's the conditions? What do we look for first? And, what needs to move in relation to each other? And every single day is different, right? And you need to have a look at how markets are moving and how they're reacting in relation to each other. And then as that's happening, you need to obviously be able to map out price action and start to set some parameters over what it is that you're looking for purely from a price action perspective. So at the moment, we can see that's the price action we have. German 30 starting the break towards the downside. I'd like to see NASDAQ make that break towards the downside. And again, if US 30 breaks that zone right there, I would be happy to start getting into a sell, and we further then chase this thing to the downside, right? So that's what we're essentially looking for this afternoon. I just want to see NASDAQ break that level. If it breaks that and we are below on US 30, then I'm looking and pretty happy to chase it towards the downside. So that's what we're going to essentially be looking at this afternoon. And yeah, I think NASDAQ is trying to push. She is at resistance. I'm putting in my feeler trade as always. So I'm just putting in one position. I'm not going to layer and add in a ton of positions. And what I'm doing is I'm just putting price above NYSE highs. So I'm just going to essentially put that up. It is a little bit of a bigger stop loss here again, but I would like to see US 30 push through. German 30 is already pushed through, but I do believe the momentum is currently sitting towards the downside. So that's what we're essentially going to hold. And I've got a feeler trade in already. And essentially, I'm just waiting for that to decide what it's going to do. Remember, we already have that early indication, right? Looking from an RSI perspective, that it is more than likely going to move into a sell direction. Something else I just want to point out on a 15-minute. Let's quickly have a look here. Was it 15 or 5? It might have been 5 that I saw. It was somewhere in that region there. Let's see if it was 30 minutes. Okay, yeah. So it was essentially sitting on that 15-minute or 5 minutes, however, and basically just looking at, we've already been in this little bit of a bull structure, and now I'm looking at, do we end up breaking this little bit of a bull push that we're currently seeing? We've got that initial break, but now we're obviously waiting to see how markets want to react further than that. So we are currently sitting in a bit of a range. And again, it's not uncommon for these sessions to be sitting in these ranges. We may very well get stopped on this one. Just really want to have a look at where the rest of the markets are going. US 30 looks really, really strong to the top side, but everything else from a NASDAQ and German 30 perspective, they definitely look like they want to sell. So I'm happy to adjust my stop loss slightly on US 30. Again, I don't want to get stopped out prematurely. But again, you've obviously got to deal with this based on your risk and your risk profile. But it's very likely we can get stopped, and we did get that initial stop. So we are stopped on US 30 at this point in time, and we now need to adjust to look at the new strategy here. Now, again, if we are seeing US NASDAQ below levels, German 30 below levels, but US 30 rising, right? I'm not going to be buying US 30, right? I need to see that these correlations are going to take shape and take form. Now, again, something else to also realize, we have a big week this week in terms of some of the big banks and their earnings data and their earning reports, right? We're going to see plus minus, I think all of the big banks are essentially going to give out their data in terms of earnings. We're going to essentially see, I believe it's JP Morgan, and I also believe Citibank. Let me quickly have a look here. I'm reopening those cells just because I believe we just got a temporary stop out there towards the top side. So I'm reopening them. And again, I'm seeing all the right signs, the original signs that we saw for the push to the downside. And what I'm going to do here is I'm potentially going to use, I think we want to go with potentially about a 5,000 points trailing here, just to avoid getting caught in a range. And again, if US 30 breaks this low that we're currently sitting at, US 30 could fall quite substantially, right? Because then we've already broken it on NASDAQ, we're breaking it on German 30. US 30 is the last one to hold out and showed some temporary resistance or temporary strength towards that top side. So my first trade's already at break even from a stop loss perspective, but I just quickly want to jump into the banks here really quickly in terms of that alert that we just popping in an alert there. right? I quickly want to just double check here. Yeah, so we have JP Morgan, Citi, and Wells Fargo are essentially giving us their earnings reports as well this week. Now, remember, some of them are currently sitting in US 30, and not all of them are obviously sitting as part of US 100. So that is, when we have some sort of effect that is essentially in one indice class that is not paired to the other, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that it will react differently, but you just got to take that into consideration as well. I'm going to move my other stop loss closer into a break-even situation. So just zooming in onto those trades, just to show you my current sort of setup here. That's what I'm currently looking at from a trade setup perspective. If we spike above this level, right, I want to be at as close to break even as possible, and I'm going to utilize this structure to give me a little bit of safety. I'm not where I want to be from a stop loss perspective. I would prefer to have caught this trade a little bit higher and have my stop losses well into, resistance zones. Because again, as you guys know, resistance is not like a solid line, right? It's more like a band. It's more like an area at which price can essentially react. So we might get a bit of a pullback, a little bit of a range, and you'll also start to see we're getting some sort of inverted symmetrical triangle here, right? Which essentially makes higher highs, lower lows, and then decides where it wants to go. But we're definitely seeing that weakness on US 30, definitely seeing the weakness on German 30, which very well may be enough to obviously see that break. We've obviously cleared support 1, we've cleared support 2, we're basically testing support 3, and from a US 30 perspective, that is obviously going to be potentially one of the last major levels before there's a free fall on NASDAQ. Sorry, I think I might have said US 30 there. So our last support level is going to be in that zone right there, and I'll quickly do a zoom in. So essentially what we're looking at for after hours or after New York Stock Exchange open is, should we have a continuation to the downside on this level here? Again, if we move past from a NASDAQ perspective, 10,937, yeah, I mean, it could be an absolute free fall from that perspective. So US 30 moving nicely into profit now. Based on the first trade, currently sitting at about 700 pips or so. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to go ahead and just take some of that profit. So I'm going to try and just close up about $1,000 here, just secure and lock that one away. So I'm closing up $1,000. My second trade is in profit already, so that's risk-free. And I would have covered that first stop loss. So I've covered my first stop loss, made back whatever pips that was, right? I think I took about a 400 or 500 pip stop there. But on the second trade where I saw the retracement, I did have a slightly bigger trade positioned there. And again, all I want to basically be doing here is, as this market starts to break down, I'll add orders, and specifically what I'm looking at on US 30 and where I'll start to really layer these orders is, if you have a look on a 30 minutes, right? Can you see this area of resistance? So should we hit my little notification, you'll see I've put a little alert here. Should we get to that zone and overextend past it, that's where I'll then start to add some orders towards that downside. And in most of those cases, that will correspond with some substantial level. And in this case, we're getting that last, I'd say that last key level before we obviously fell through the floor. And that's going to be those two zones right there. So at when we traded NFP, right, that 4 o'clock mark on Friday, and then again, that was our support, our resistance level there came in at, let's just see here, 6:45 on Friday afternoon. So that is going to be our last real zone, I think, from a support perspective. And should we fail that zone, then I think we're going to the floor. So my stop loss covered me in terms of that pullback. Trailing stops are definitely the way to go. So we, I think, took a knock for around about 400 pips, made about 600 back, and I think I banked a little bit of pips, maybe about 100 or 200 in terms of that pullback, with my stop loss being below my sell entry, giving me a little bit of profit there. But I think this is going to be the next moment we really want to watch out for now, is what does US 30 want to do? Again, symmetrical triangle formation, right? But certainly something on US 30 is a lot more happy than we're obviously seeing in the other markets in terms of NASDAQ. Now, again, I will stay on this broadcast extended for the reason being that we haven't yet got the breakouts, right? So this is a range. And you guys know I don't like trading ranges. So as soon as I see something range, I generally try and stay away from it, for the reason being that, again, once we're stuck into a range and once we see that range is in play, I don't like to just sit and buy and sell. But generally, and why I sometimes wait for a range to be done and dusted, is we generally start to see that bigger breakout once a range is completed. Because remember, a range, all that's trying to do is figure out where price is going to come to from an equilibrium perspective. And once that's done and dusted, we then see that next big move in terms of an impulse. So when I have time, obviously I sometimes sit and then rather wait for the range to play itself out. In this particular case, we will wait a few more minutes extended just to have a look at what ends up transpiring on that range and from that perspective. Yeah, so we're just going to quickly hang around a little bit longer and just have a look. Again, I still think a breakout to the downside is where the market is currently positioning itself, but obviously we can see that anything can pretty much happen at this point from a breakout perspective. Yeah, if you guys are having network issues, that's not ideal. On my side, we have really good latency. We're currently reading a live latency of 1.4 seconds. At this type of quality, streaming over YouTube is absolutely amazing. Okay, so we're getting that nice little shunt on US30 towards the downside. We just poked the bear, right? We just got that little push there. We just got that little move there. This next one, should we go past it, right, is where my ideal entry is from a sell perspective. So again, all of the trades that we've looked at in terms of sells would all be profitable, and you could have been even more profitable, should you have been in a position where you were obviously looking from a risk perspective as to holding and keeping your stop loss higher into the resistance zone. But if you had any of these sells on and you closed them manually, obviously you would have been a profit and you would have made some money there, which is obviously ideal and where you'd want to go and where you'd want to be. So I'm just keeping my order window ready and open should we get that trigger. But again, inversely, should we get this range giving us a breakout, right? As I'm saying, he's holding his sell 100%. My sells are currently closed out. And again, now, because we're in a range, I'll allow those sells to be closed and I'll then look for this next move. Because again, we're getting that beautiful market structure, that inverted symmetrical triangle, which basically means that market is busy filling out those highs and those lows. So the next move we get could be a monster, right? The next move we get could be a massive, massive move. So we did get that little order. We got that little alert as price hits on US30 at 29,000, let's say $380. And again, should we go past that level? That's where I'm pretty happy to sell. From a buy perspective, the $29,490 range is currently where I'd like to buy, right? Yeah, Wayne, if you've got your sell on NASDAQ, you should be smiling. NASDAQ has definitely been the better performer this afternoon in terms of straight trajectory. We got that nice little break there. NASDAQ, you should be reading around about 300 pips in profit, somewhere around about there. German 30 is also an absolute machine. German 30 can also generate some pretty high pip counts. But for me, I've just noticed that I stick with US 30 because I understand the instrument more. I understand its market structures. And that's really what it comes down to from a trading perspective. You start to learn, what an instrument does. And it's almost like a personality type, right? You start to know when that instrument's acting funny. You start to know when it's trending correctly. You start to, and again, that's why, I say, pick a handful of things, ideally not more than about 10, and spend time on those instruments. Don't just sit on US 30. Don't just sit on gold. Don't just sit on oil, but, pick 10 or different things and start to build a understanding with that particular instrument. And it tends to change. If you think you know an instrument and you leave it for 2-3 weeks, I promise you come back and it's like a completely different thing, as if, completely different. So we're gonna hold on to this one and just have a look at what ends up happening as we move into, and pretty much as long as time will allow us to this afternoon, because we should have essentially wrapped up this broadcast already. Again, being Monday, obviously need to understand that Monday after NFPs are slow, markets are going to only fully absorb the data, the analytics, what was trading activities, what were the sentiments, and again, coming in and just obviously having a look at and being considerate of the fact that we have that CPI data, consumer price index, that is coming in on Thursday, and it will be a highly considered number for the Federal Reserve's decision for that next interest rate. Now, as you guys know, on that interest rate, that is essentially what has triggered all of the chaos that we've seen over the past 4 weeks, right? So again, there's going to be a lot of opportunity to capitalize. We're going to look at the last interest rate. We will be a part of that. And remember, that will be, again, a special live broadcast. So if you want to be a part of that, again, never been a better time to have a live account. So in essence, if you traded NFP with us on Friday, let me just give you an example. If you traded NFP with us on Friday, most traders, most of the feedback was that people were doubling their accounts, right? In normal terms, that would have basically given you all the profit you need for the next trading month from a risk perspective, that you're no longer risking your money, you're risking the market's money, right? You're not risking the broker's money. Remember, when you make a profit that's executed to liquidity, the market is paying you, not the broker, right? The broker is sending your order through to international liquidity. So using the market's money, the market's profits, in order to trade further. So you need to have that little bit of a shift in terms of understanding and in terms of understanding a little bit better. So let's just see here. We got a question. Anyone use a 1 to 300 ZAR account on Globex? How much margin is it to open a 0.01? How much is it to open a 0.01? Is 0.1 on Globex? Okay, so it's a great question. Carls is asking, right, what you need to understand is Globex's gearing, right? And I'm just going to quickly leave my charts in the background while I speak about this. I don't want to miss this trade. Right, there we go. So what you need to understand is Globex's gearing when it comes to indices is 1-to-1. Meaning when you trade with some other brokers, their gearing is much higher. They're opening up 1-to-100, right? Not leverage, 1-to-100 contracts. When you open a contract, they're opening up 100. So example, on other brokers, right, when you open up a 0.01, right, for every pip the market moves, it's going to give you about 10 cents in dollar terms, right? If you open a 0.10, that's going to give you $1. And if you open up a standard lot, that's $10 for every pip on indices with other brokers. But at the same time, when you open up a 0.01, you're going to need, $30, $40, $60 in margin just on a 0.01. I think it's closer to probably about $80 or $100 from a margin perspective, right? With Globex, we have 1-to-1 ratios on indices, meaning that on something like US 30, when you open in the minimum order is a 0.10, that requires $10 of margin, right? So from a ZAR perspective, times by South African Rand, it's 180 Rand to be able to open up a 0.10. That's the margin requirements, but that is equivalent to a 0.001 anywhere else. So the reason that we have that is that it gives you on one account all the benefits of a micro account with all the benefits of a standard account. So you can open up 100 lots, but you can also open up a 0.10, which means that you have all that flexibility. Whether you're $1 million client or $100 client, on one account, you have all that diversity to obviously open up and do what you want. And again, it's obviously important from a margin perspective, and that's why we've included that. We may consider at a later stage to fully distinguish those two types of accounts, so that we have micro accounts, right, listed as micro, and we have standard accounts listed as standard. It may be something that come in at a later stage. A standard account will just require higher margin, but the gearing would be obviously higher. So for every pip the market moves, you make more money, but the margin is obviously much bigger. So that's the reason we've done that. We've done that to make indices and really the global stock market more accessible to every single person out there. But yes, as long as you understand that. So just to summarize, a 0.10 requires roundabout in the region of about $10 from a margin perspective. And yeah, you would then be looking from a pip count perspective at around about a cent per pip that the markets move, right? So at a 0.10, right, 0.10, if the markets move 1,000 pips as an example, you're looking at about a cent per pip, so that'll be about $10 from a trade perspective. So markets are really showing a lot of momentum towards the downside from a US30 as well as NASDAQ perspective. You know what, I think this is our last support zone, you know, before we really break down and markets really lose a ton of momentum. So I'm pretty happy to poke in one last trade there. And again, I'm doing this at my own risk because I do know we are in a range. But again, should markets collapse at this point here, my stop loss is a little bit above where we're currently at. I'm going in for that secondary position there. And I'll do a little bit of I'm doing a little bit more of a cheeky stop loss, right? I'm doing a 2,000 points trailing, just for the reason being that, right? Okay, there we go. Nice big push in the markets. That is about 2,000 points right there. It's about 200 pips. So I'd like to see that push just a little bit more sustained, but it looks like across the board, we're seeing those markets break down towards that downside. So we're going to go in here and I'm going to layer some orders in because we are through that technical zone. And it definitely looks across the board, unless we get a pullback now, because remember we are at support, right? If we get that slight push further, and what I'm doing is I'm basically layering my orders here. There we go. Nice massive move there. Trailing stops are engaged. We've got some good sells in on that one. And again, if you are on that original sell from US30, you should and will be definitely smiling at this point, because markets have, from our original entries, moved well over 800 pips towards the downside, and you should be in some good profit as we speak at this moment in time. So I'm going to go ahead and add in one more layer there, and I'm going to go ahead and potentially look at closing up some profit. Let's go have a look there. There we go. And all I'm basically going to do is just set up again some, on those later orders, I'm just going to set up some slight trailings. And again, I'm just going to make these a little bit more cheeky, for the reason being that we've got some good trades already nice and early on. So these last orders that we've got here, I'm pretty much doing a straight 100 pip trailing. So the second that moves into profit, it'll basically cover my position as we see markets push a little bit further down, around about there, and I should move into profit. So we're already starting to move deep into profit there. I'm going to adjust and create another 5,000 trailing there. Let's add 5,000 there. Okay, beautiful. So depending where your original entry was from a US30 perspective, if you entered with me originally over there, we are around about 800 pips in profit. So that would mean in combination, right, across the board, right, you should be in the region. If you've got 3 trades, 800 pips per trade, that's 2,500 pips, 2,400, 2,600 pips total. So you should be smiling there. There we go. So have a look there. Nice big move there. Remember, I've got that 1,000 point trailing, so I'm being super cautious. But in essence, if it gets a little bit of a pullback, then it just means I'm going to close out in profit really soon, really quickly there. I don't want to hold big stops, right? If one of them closed out, I'm literally just going to position myself right there, and I'm essentially just going to hold that, right? That's all I'm going to basically be doing this afternoon, is I'm basically going to hold that. So you can close up some of your profits. If you've got your original sell with me in there, I would say go and grab, grab those 800 pips, go ahead and bank that. Again, we were looking for sells from the start of the session, but we're seeing those sells kick in there. And yeah, like I said, if you caught those originals, some cases over 1,200 pips, and we can see markets running, pulled my trailing into profit, closed that trade, banked that trade for me, and nice and easy for the win right there. So I've still got about a total of about 30 lots plus minus, and all I really want to do here is I just want to put my risk back into my zone, right? Because I've already obviously collected some profit, so I'm basically using that profit now as my new risk. So if I've banked 600 pips, I'm going to use half of that. I'm going to use 300 pips of that to cover some of my open positions, so that I know even if those open positions close at this moment in time, I'm still net positive by 300 pips, depending on obviously what ratio it is from a trading perspective. So nice, great little push down from a movement. From an advice perspective, on a TP perspective, right now, again, remember, nothing that we do here is financial advice. This is all for educational purposes only. And you're just watching traders do what traders do, and that's trade, right? It's for your information, it's for your understanding. But all I would say, and if you're asking me about my opinion and my opinion only on what I would do from a risk or trade perspective, is that remember, we've got that breakout, we've got that pushback. So we are currently at support, right? So I would have taken profit at the support zone here because again, we're going back into this channel, right? But again, if we break this channel, then I would utilize the 500 period moving average on a minute time frame, and that'll more than likely coincide plus minus 29,261. So 29,261, 29261, right, is that ultimate zone. I would then look for a second TP, and then third TP again could be all the way down to 29,172. That would be a total of 2,600 pips south of our entries on those particular cells. So that's essentially where we're going to go. But I think let's quickly jump in while we have a few more minutes left, and let's just quickly have a look at, from an FX perspective, what is happening in the markets and what is happening in the dollar index, and where could we go from that CPI data release. Right, we have a few minutes left. Dollar is super strong, right? If we see the dollar breach this little channel, we got that weakness yesterday and last week, leading up the whole of last week. I really would have liked to have seen a bad NFP on Friday, not for any reason. I want to see a currency go down, I don't want to see an economy in trouble, but a negative NFP would have been in line with the Fed's goal to slow down that growth on the dollar, which is obviously smashing it. Dollar is obviously rampant. So in line with that good NFP, dollar has picked up value. We back up into those very, very high zones, those dangerous zones, currently looking at 113 on the dollar index, right? So dollar looking still extremely strong as we currently sit. That translates from a Euro USD perspective, meaning that we are still in that bear momentum, right? Again, if we got that NFP data that came out weak on Friday, that would have sent the dollar into a little bit of a downward spiral, and that could have been a Euro USD breakout towards the top side. Now, just quickly giving a quick spy into our US 30 cells. I do believe we are smashing it. We're doing really well. I would go ahead and take profit here as my second take profit. We're currently now running a total of 1,200 pips for a sell. So if you're in that trade, again, as always, do me a favor, grab a screenshot of that trade. If you're in that sell with us, go ahead and upload it, Instagram, Facebook, doesn't matter where. Go ahead and tag Globex360 and say that it's all happening right here live on Dollars for Lunch. You're welcome to tag me too. You can type at Dane, DAYNNE, and thank my mom for that name. I'm the only one that's out there for that particular name. So Dane Tata DVDM. Right, you can go ahead and tag me with that. Share the love as always. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and do that. Hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and just share the love right there. So I can see I'm a little bit low on camera battery, so we don't have a lot of time left, but a beautiful US 30 run. Quickly having a look at USD ZAR. We had that opportunity on Friday for that buy market move. For those of you that caught that buy, USD ZAR had a really nice push, but we are obviously now looking at this moment in time as to what we could see from a continuation perspective. So a weaker dollar, right? If we get a weaker dollar, we could break at 78.6. But again, as I've said to you, my long-term objectives on USD ZAR is closer to the 19-20 rand to the dollar before the end of the year. So it is going to get a little bit crazy. Gold, in terms of where we have obviously been from NFP, we obviously know really strong dollar forced gold to break its market structure. We're past the 61.8. We passed that $1,700 to an ounce of gold. So really all eyes on this particular week is going to be and primarily revolve around what happens to the dollar. What kind of CPI data do we get? And I remember, a higher than expected reading from a CPI perspective is going to reflect as positive from a fundamental data perspective, but it is not positive because it means the Fed needs to come in, not with a hammer, not with a chainsaw, might have to come in with a bulldozer to really knock the US dollar and the US economy back into shape to avoid insane amounts and levels of inflation. So that's obviously what we're looking at and what we're going to be looking at. So the key focus from a fundamental data perspective is going to be Thursday. And remember, we are going to trade that live. That has the same ability to move the markets this week as what we've currently seen happen on NFP. So if you've missed NFP and you weren't a part of that, weren't part of the millions that were made on Friday, and you obviously want to be a part of that, then I would say this Thursday is going to be your opportunity to jump in and get involved with us. Now, as always, guys, in the chats and in the comments, you guys have been absolutely amazing. We had a very powerful week last week, but we're going to do it all over again, even better, even bigger this week. But as always, I want you guys to remember to live, trade, and always do things the Globex 360 way. I'll see you guys in the morning. Pounds for breakfast. That'll be live at 8:45. We're going to have some fun. It's going to be big. You want to definitely be a part of that. So I'll see you guys in the morning. Tag us on social media. Share the love, because I can promise you this doesn't happen anywhere else in the world right now. Only right here at Globex 360. So quickly, some shout out to those of you that are in the comments. Mackenzie's saying some locked in some profits. Globex all the way. As I open more sells, Assam has got 1,500 point trailing stops. It closes more. It closes, I open more. So 1,500 points is only 150 pips. So when it comes to US30, that is nothing. It's a very, very small amount. So when you see me opening trailing stops, I'm opening in the region of 2,000, 3,000, or 5,000 points, depending how volatile the market is. And again, the more volatile the market, the more likely that you'll be closed out prematurely from a trailing stop perspective. So you obviously want to pay attention to that. Just looking at some more of the comments. Let's quickly have a look at the rest of the comments. I need more grocery money, Dane. Fires is saying he spent more money over the weekend. So he's gonna well, you should be in profit today, Fires. So you should be smashing it, you should be doing your thing. Let's quickly have a look here. It's not working correctly. My calculated margin requirements for NAS 100. Also the gold. Okay, Carls, we'll also have a look at that. I am the calculator for you, so I've told you the margin requirements. Another hack you can go ahead and do is open up a pending order, right? And you can obviously see what that looks like. Right. Nobile is saying US advice on TP on US30. I've already given that. Now it cost me $200 to open that NAS position where previously was far less. The Globex team, please distinguish, as you mentioned, between standard and micro. Would make it much easier. Culls, yes, we will do. We will obviously make sure. Remember, it's in the region of dollars, right? So understand the US dollar, the rand to dollar ratio is getting worse. So if you have a rand account and the South African rand is losing value and becoming more expensive and margin is in dollars, it will cost you more South African rands. Come on, you're a trader. You should know this, right? So if it was costing you 180 rand or 150 rand when the rand was 15, 16 rand to the dollar, and the rand is currently trading, what are we currently looking at this point in time? Rand is currently trading at 18 rand 8 cents, right? Yes, it's going to cost you more. It's going to cost you more from a margin perspective. So get a dollar account, because then you benefit from the South African rand movements as well as your margins are fixed. There we go, Carl. So I hope you've got that. Everybody's saying they're in their cells. As I'm saying, he's waiting on the 1663 before considering buys. How many of you opened? Lucky's asking, how many of you opened a sell on US30? I think a lot of people, because we are making money and printing money on US30. So a couple thousand pips. And right, Mackenzie's saying he just closed it and it pushed a bit more. That's again why let your runners run, right? On some of my trades here this afternoon, I'm running 1,000. Let's see, a total of about, what I've got currently running is about $1,800. I can see it's pushing, it's retracing, it's doing what it wants to do. That's why we hold these trades. That's what a stop loss is for at the end of the day. So my trailing stop has locked me out of one of those trades, locked away about $1,000, and we have a couple also busy moving and doing their thing. So again, remember, if you missed NFP, you weren't a part of that, you want to be a part of that. Again, CPI data. I will be trading that live dollars for lunch. You need to have a live Globex 360 account, and I won't be sharing the link again into the groups for dollars for lunch. It will only be by live account. So remember, if you don't get your email, go look in your trash, go look at your spam. We are sending those emails. We can see we're sending out thousands of emails. We can see the people opening and reading those emails. So it's definitely being sent. It's just due to help those of you who are obviously missing out. But listen, outside of that, guys, listen, I'll see you guys all pounds for breakfast for free tomorrow. We break down what's happening in the world, what's happening in the markets, and we look to open and trade a little bit of that London market open. But until then, listen, as always, told you, live, trade, do things Globex 360 way. Tag me on social media, tag Globex on social media. Let's make the love, share some fire. The more you do, the more feedback we get from you, the more we can do for you. So if you want more and more, you have to give us a little bit back in terms of feedback, and we will push even harder. Until then, until I see you guys tomorrow, as always, much love. Goodbye.